the Queen of the Damned. December 8th, 1542, a day that only matters to some, was the date of Mary Stuart's birth. Only a week later, her father, King James V, died, leaving a week-old baby as the head of state for Scotland. Arranged marriages have often been used throughout history to forge alliances between countries. Such was the case when Mary was arranged to wed Prince Edward of England. The problem, however, was that Scotland had absolutely no interest in this agreement. Henry VIII, the King of England, and also the King of not taking no for an answer, decided an invasion of Scotland might convince them to go through with the deal. Instead, Mary was sent to France in 1548 to wed soon-to-be-dead Dauphin, Francis II. In 1558, Mary lost her goddamn mind and signed away Scotland and her claim to the English throne over to France as she died. She married the Dauphin, Francois, in Notre Dame. Later that same year, Mary I of England, aka Bloody Mary, was succeeded on the throne by Elizabeth I. In the eyes of English Catholics, however, it was Mary Stuart who was the rightful heir, despite Henry VIII's will explicitly excluding the Stuarts from the throne. Eventually, Mary and soon-dead Dauphin Francois were elevated to the throne and became Queen and King of France, respectively. At the same time, across the water, a group of Protestant noblemen whose boy band name was the Lords of Congregation began fighting the power of the Catholics in Scotland, and order was maintained solely through the use of French troops. After Mary's mother died, the Treaty of Edinburgh was signed that recognized Elizabeth I's claim to the throne of England. Mary refused to ratify the treaty. Thankfully for the Scots and the English, soon dead stuck to his name and promptly died in his teens in 1561. Mary returned to Scotland, only 19, already a widow, and walked into an absolute shit show of a country. The Reformation was in full swing after his pimpness, Martin Luther, left a rather unpleasant review of the Catholic Church on the community message board. Hoping to bring unity to the country, Mary wed Lord Darnley, a Protestant and her half-cousin, in 1565. Mary soon became pregnant, and rumors flew that her secretary, David, may be the father. So, as all men should do when faced with such rumors, Lord Darnley viciously murdered David right in front of Mary. Her child, who would be James VI of Scotland and James I of England, was baptized as a Catholic. The Protestants didn't like that. In 1567, a random house in Edinburgh exploded, and Lord Darnley was found strangled in the garden outside of the house. Seems a tad suspect. Now, twice widowed, you might expect Mary to shrink into the background. You would be wrong. 3 months later, she wed a third time, this time to a nobleman named James Hepburn. At this point, the Protestants were absolutely not having it. The Congregation boys imprisoned Mary just 2 months after her marriage to Hepburn. Mary escaped and managed to raise a small army, only to have her ass absolutely handed to her at the Battle of Langside on May 13, 1568, by a substantially smaller force. After abdicating the throne to her 1-year-old son, I guess the Scots love babies, she fled south to England. Mary's cousin, Elizabeth I, viewed Mary as a threat because of her past claim to the throne. Almost immediately, rumors flew of plots by Mary to take the throne from Elizabeth. Letters that were found allegedly proved Mary's plotting, but they were so hotly disputed that no one knows whether they were real or not up to this day. Meanwhile, the Reformation continued causing chaos across England and Scotland as the Catholics and Protestants fought over who loved their religion the hardest. Elizabeth kept Mary in prison because Mary could just not mind her own goddamn business. Several plots were uncovered over the years, each of them failing, and Mary narrowly avoiding being implicated each time. Enter Sir Francis Walsingham, spymaster and Elizabeth's Secretary of State. See, Francis had a plan. After Elizabeth issued a decree in 1584 forbidding communication to and from Mary, Walsingham set up a series of intermediaries to allow letters to go to Mary and be sent by her, but both paths led through him. In July 1586, Mary wrote a letter outlining her need to get the hell out of prison. Quote, "For I have long ago shown unto the foreign Catholic princes what they have done against the King of Spain, and in the time the Catholics here remaining, exposed to all persecutions and cruelty, do daily diminish in number, forces, means, and power. So as, if remedy be not thereunto speedily provided, I fear not a little, but they shall become altogether unable for ever to rise again, and to receive any aid at all, whensoever it were offered. Then for mine own part, I pray you to assure our principal friends, that albeit I had not in this case any particular interest in this case, I shall be always ready and most willing to employ therein my life and all that I have, or may ever look for, in this world. Once Mary gave the green light on the plot, it was a wrap. Elizabeth had every person involved hung by the neck, disemboweled, and quartered. Unfortunately, the first group was still alive when the disembowelment began. Mary, however, was beheaded in Forthing-Hay Castle in 1587. She was buried at a nearby cathedral. Elizabeth would continue her reign and go down as one of the greatest women ever. Following Elizabeth's death, James, Mary's son, ascended to the throne of England. He had Mary's body exhumed and moved to a place of honor in Westminster Abbey, and had Elizabeth's body moved to a worse place. The pettiness of the English really knows no bounds.